Welcome everybody to the town board meeting. Town board work session of Tuesday, April 17th, 2018. First on our agenda, we have our esteemed tax assessor Josh Sherman here. And to talk about the affidavit of continued eligibility.
Alright, yes, so this affidavit of eligibility is for the low income senior exemption. It allows for those that have incomes less than $37,000 a year. It allows them to sign this affidavit so they don't have to come in and provide proof of income. It's basically a statement of no change, and it allows for the continuance of the exemption.
Okay.
No objection to that.
Okay.
So it's basically trying to eliminate the paperwork and the hassle for our.
That affidavit, is it signed under penalty of perjury?
Yep.
It is. So typically, if there are people that submit fraudulent applications, it's usually $100 fine, and then they're eliminated from
It's
the
actually
exemption.
criminal, actually. Which is a much bigger issue than $100.
So I actually reached out to Josh on this issue yesterday because I was sort of interested to understand what the town has set up in terms of this exemption, because there is some flexibility for different municipalities to basically set what their income threshold is for how much of an exemption you can get. And Josh has assured me that the town of Newcastle actually provides the greatest possible incentives for senior citizens to take advantage of this exemption. But I actually also pointed out to Josh that in 2017, the New York State Legislature actually approved for New York City a pretty significant increase in terms of that income threshold for senior citizens to be able to claim this exemption. So they bumped it from the 29,000, which allows you to take the 50% exemption, and 37,400 for the sliding scale where you're still eligible for the exemption. They bumped that way up, and so it's a 50,000 floor in New York City now, and up to 58,000 you're still eligible for. So
Is that legislated solely for the city?
it's only for the city, but I actually think that we could reach out to our elected officials here in, Assemblyman Buckwold and Senator Murphy, and see if there's a willingness to sort of, on behalf of Westchester County and potentially other surrounding counties, Nassau, Suffolk, what have you, see if we could extend that to the New York City environment.
Is that would require a home rule, or is it?
Yeah.
No, I think it would
you think
require,
statewide?
it would require
Statewide,
state
right.
legislation. No, I'm specifically talking, I think we would have greater leverage if we were saying
doing a home rule.
New York City adjacent. No, you can't do it through home rule, I don't think.
Why? Why would we go to home rule?
I don't know, well,
I think it sounds
Would
like
you?
one, I think you would be able to.
Okay.
You
Well,
need
the
just,
deadline's
Well,
coming
because
up again.
I think that $50,000, depending upon where you are in the state, I don't know that they would go for it statewide.
Right, Chemung County is probably different than,
Right.
for sure,
Yeah,
but
right.
You can spell that.
Westchester, I think, is similar enough in terms of its demographics to New York
right.
City that we ought to make that case.
We can ask for the home rule and then they could tell us otherwise, but
let's
the
worry
deadline's
about
coming
us
up.
first before we worry about city county, so let's try to home
Yeah.
rule it for us.
Yeah,
Right, it's definitely
Okay.
easier.
So would that be a Westchester or just a Newcastle if we're home ruling it?
no, just
Just Newcastle?
just Newcastle, we can only request it for Newcastle.
So would we be in a better stance to circulate a letter to our neighbors and try to do it for Westchester, or?
Arguably, that'd be a
just
heavier
do it?
lift,
Yeah.
I think whether it's selfish or not,
Right.
we probably wanna pursue our own legislators to get it done for us. More ears and eyes on it maybe cause more difficulties, because someone, well, why not us, why not us? And then it becomes a statewide issue and now we've lost that opportunity.
But
So I think we start locally and then think larger.
I definitely think we do the home rule, but I do think what's gonna happen is, I think the home rule gets much greater scrutiny when when it has the ability to, for other towns to follow the lead and they start looking at it more holistically. Like when we ask for a home rule that only affects Newcastle and nobody else would ever wanna do it, nobody really cares about it.
right.
Well, let's see
Well,
what they have to
it's-
say,
yeah,
see what
right.
Murphy and
No,
Buckle
we
have
start
to
with
say.
that, but I have a feeling it's gonna
Well, at
Run
the
into
end of the
some
day, it's not really impacting anybody else, because it just means that the rest of our residents bear
They're
an
redistributing
increase,
it,
right,
That allows us to,
burden. We redistribute it within our boundaries, it doesn't affect anybody else,
Right.
we just shift it, so. if that's something that we're willing to take on ourselves, it's not like, we're detrimentally affecting anybody else in the
Right.
state.
Well, that's true, we'll try with the
Unless there
homeless.
was a particular community that had a significant population of retired people with that level of income as in terms of their entire population, I said, well, wait a second, now you're going to put the burden on a minority of people to compensate. I have no idea, I'm making it up, I have
Yes,
no
yeah,
idea.
like I said, yeah,
But let's not worry about it, just ask Senator Murphy and someone in Buffalo.
yeah.
Okay. Alright, next,
Okay.
so thanks, Josh.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Half day again?
That's what I do.
I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
Did you have meetings tonight?
Yes.
Oh, good, so it wasn't, you weren't waiting for
Yeah, it was 3 hours ago, but don't worry about it.
Yeah, only two, actually.
Alright,
One was at 4, one was at 5.
alright, good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Alright, why don't we just go into
Wanna skip over the goals and objectives?
How about we go to downtown zoning?
Alright, then we'll get, why don't we just do goals and, Rob's goals and objectives while we're waiting for Sabrina to come in, okay?
Michael's objectives?
Yeah, yours. Are we here with it?
Is this like in general, or is it related to Newcastle?
No, no.
Rob, you here for the airport thing? You wanna just do the airport real quick and then we talk, do we have on the agenda to talk about not just the authorization, but also the a committee?
Yes, well,
You wanna just do that? So- 'cause-
Yeah, that's on there, we kinda talked about it. So, we mentioned it earlier. I thought that it would be a good idea to create, I guess we're doing it now for work session, to create a Newcastle Airport Advisory Committee, because I think that, as discussed at the meeting over the weekend, I think there are gonna be a lot of issues with the airport coming up, including privatization, as well as the issues that are specifically affecting Newcastle in terms of noise. And while we're also gonna appoint someone to the advisory board for the airport, I think we're gonna have a lot of work that needs to be done here, and a lot of interested residents and a lot of qualified interested residents. So I think we should create this committee to utilize their knowledge and get their help.
Right,
And
master plan
not
also.
just advocating, but also being able to look at all the issues that are gonna be arising with the airport and giving us input, being able to analyze data, and then not just advise us, but also speak to our appointee on the advisory board for the airport that we're gonna nominate, appoint, so that they can give them the information, the background that they need as well, in order to effectively advocate for us.
Right. The bottom, that was a great suggestion, is that the bottom line is that there's a lot of people on Facebook who are following this issue very, very closely. They're, to a certain extent though, they're preaching to the choir because, they all share the same concerns and we need them to preach to us directly and to use their, take some of their energy and apply it towards the town-wide issues and so that they could be more effective than just preaching to each other on Facebook.
Yeah, and not everybody's on Facebook. I mean,
Right.
as we saw when we interviewed candidates for the position.
Right, exactly, so we're gonna appoint somebody tonight to the airport advisory board, because we know we have a meeting, there's a meeting next week, April 25th. And then our attorneys, I think we're in agreement that they're gonna come up with a resolution to establish a committee. And then we'll try to, we'll circulate it, we'll see what it says as far as what the mission's gonna be, and then we'll take it from there.
We can seek input from interested residents now, not input, but interest from interested residents to be on the committee now, even if it's not formed yet, right?
Right.
Well, and that's not a bad idea, because we wanna gauge how many people would be interested, so how many members we can have. And,
Right, and certainly people interviewed for the advisory board who were awesome. So if they're interested and we could tap them for this committee as well, I think that would be a win for the town.
well, anytime we got people who are willing to work and volunteer, it's always a shame to turn them away. So we wouldn't be turning them away, we'll be offering them the chance to serve on this committee and contribute in a different capacity. So,
Okay,
what do you guys look at?
okay, that's good.
Nick was looking at it. It's a good.
Good.
They're doing it again.
So what? Everything good?
They're talking about me. Guess whispering to each other, looking right at me.
What do you think?
So, are we gonna do the appointment now for the advisory board? Do we have a resolution?
I have resolutions here, I just don't know who that person's gonna be, so it's blank.
So whoever
And I'll
does
give it out.
resolution could it add it in.
This online?
Yeah, there's two different,
Then we'll go into, after this, we'll go into zoning so that we can,
No, it's, I think
Sabrina's
it's,
here.
it's one
I
package.
think they're different things.
Yeah, it's one package.
so what am I giving?
this is just all the, these are just all the proposed actions.
Oh,
Right,
oh,
pass
We're
it down,
not-
pass it down.
Some of them
Yeah,
are
one
not
more, I
quite
need
ready
one.
yet, but at least, yeah. He
Do
still
you
doesn't
want
have
me to
anything.
read it?
It's on the last page.
Okay, you want me to read it?
Sure.
yeah.
Okay. What dates are we using? Today?
Yeah.
Yes. 4/18. 17,
Well,
tax day?
what's the effective date through?
Through when? You know?
Put it through the end of the year, I guess.
Well,
We don't have the actual position at this point.
Yes.
So I think what you need to do is our intent.
I mean,
Well,
we
we don't actually
really,
appoint.
we don't really
You don't
appoint,
It's
appoint.
it's the
we're
board's
just
request,
recommending.
it's the board's request to the
Correct.
county legislature, right?
Exactly.
Okay,
So let's make it
so-
a year.
Definitely a year, not till the end of the year, but the question is when.
Okay.
Okay, so we should do today till a year from today?
Well, I,
Well, it's their term, so I think it's their appointment to,
Oh, yeah,
It's
they set the term and everything,
and
so.
this resolution's wrong,
Right.
but
Right.
okay, so this,
so
yeah.
it's just
Okay.
a
It's
recommendation.
just a recommendation to the county board of legislators that X be
Yep.
appointed
So it
as
shouldn't
the
say appoint,
town
it
of
should say
Newcastle
To
representative.
recommend to
Okay, so
Westchester-
I move to recommend to the Westchester County Board of Legislators that they appoint as the Newcastle representative to the Westchester County Airport Advisory Board, Robert Fleischer, for the term, as set forth by the Board of Legislators commencing, you know, as soon as the appointment's made. Can I get a second?
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye,
I'll abstain.
abstain.
okay. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Sucker. Did you hear this up? Over here? This side. Make right.
Only say condolences.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, next on the agenda, zoning for downtown Chapel. Now, this is one of the goals, so we
Yes,
are
it
talking about
is.
goals.
We are talking about
So I mean, the goal is to talk about a different goal, an objective every work session. And this is one of the goals and objectives. Zoning for downtown Chapel.
Go
This
for
is
it.
part of the goals and objectives, they really should be aligned as a topic.
So
Go ahead,
let's,
Ivy.
yeah, I don't know, should we talk about the zoning, cause then we can talk about the goals and objectives after that?
Well,
Yeah, 'cause
all I was saying is this is one of
This is
the
one of them.
goals of
Okay.
them,
So
right,
we'll
it's
get
a
back to
separate
that.
discussion,
Okay,
right, you're
got
right,
it.
it is a separate
So we'll do
discussion.
zoning first?
Yeah,
He's
because
on-
Sabrina's here.
Sabrina's here.
Go ahead,
We-
shoot.
we can move on.
She also has a planning board meeting going.
Right,
So,
so,
I also don't want to kick all the goals and objectives the first part.
so zoning for downtown, all of you had a commonality in your priorities in relation to implementation of the comprehensive plan. And goal 26 was one of them. Goal 26 is a very broad goal to create a sustainable mix of commercial and residential uses within the hamlets. There's different actions. Some relate to examining infill opportunities to meet the needs of the community, and there's a big paragraph as to what that means. Others are re-examine existing zoning within the hamlets, both Millwood and Chappaqua, to determine how best to change zoning to meet the needs of the public and the community as identified in the comprehensive plan. So there's a whole gamut of priorities. Both the infill opportunities were identified as a priority by all of you, as well as the zoning as a whole by all of you. And I've heard different conversations, different information from each of you regarding those. So I thought that perhaps a better way to address this goal would be to perhaps have Pace Land Use Law Center come in and facilitate a workshop with you all, specifically regarding this goal. Because for different people, it means different things. There are different approaches to different actions, and in order for me to implement either a request for proposals for somebody to study zoning or to come up with recommendations on what to do with the infill properties, the train station property, the parking lots, you folks all need to be on the same page or working towards the same thing. And I thought that maybe bringing Tiffany back in, to work with you, maybe a morning meeting, you know, a 2-hour session,
No morning meetings.
whenever you want the meeting, to talk about, you know, to facilitate you through
But
what some
just
of
the
these things
board,
mean.
or are we thinking of
Yeah.
incorporating the planning board or
Well,
the
well,
zoning board?
I'm throwing this idea out
I
there.
think Tiffany's great, as you know.
No,
but
I know,
not the
well-
other guy, right?
Except I was not impressed with what they kind of gave us about downtown.
Yes.
We're not
possibilities.
we are not talking about downtown possibilities. We're
Yeah.
not even there yet, okay? We are talking about what is the best approach, what do you folks want out of downtown? When you say to me, tell us about zoning, Sabrina, I'm like, well, there's lots of different ways to look at zoning. And depending on the way you wanna examine it is really the tool that we employ.
Well, wait a minute. The comp plan itself, I felt, in many different ways, was very clear, that process of what people wanted out of this downtown. It was not a vacuum where, you know, we can fill it up with our hopes and dreams.
No, not at all.
It was very concrete.
Correct, but that approach on how to get to that concrete, there's different ways to get there.
With zoning.
Through zoning, through doing a request or for expressions of interest to the development community. I've had.
We discussed this about a year ago.
Exactly, I had a resident in town who's a developer provide me with his vision based on the comprehensive plan for the town's parking lots. Okay, we don't have a forum right now for him, other than him coming to talk to you about what he
Well, I
did.
think having Tiffany to come in and help navigate some of the different potential visions that there may be to solve the implementation of the comp plan probably would not be a bad idea. Because I'm not sure that we as a board, we've seen the development of the train station with what's his face, I forget his name.
I'm sorry, we have not all seen
No,
it.
no, the four of us have, but what's his name, the guy from Brooklyn?
Kevin Warka.
Warka.
But Kevin's plans.
And I think that there is not necessarily, the board itself is not really discussed. We know that there's some people with very strong feelings that feels the solution is to develop the train station because the town owns it, parking lot. But I'm not sure that whether Ivy or myself or anybody else at that point is necessarily I know I'm not 100% behind that idea.
Right, and well, and
I don't think
listening
we're there, I think we're talking about zoning and.
Well, no, so see, and this is the dilemma that I'm having
Yeah, I
as
get
your
it.
staff. I mean,
Right.
I'm hearing different things from different people.
Of
Well, it also depends on when you're hearing
And for me,
it.
from an implementation standpoint, there are different tools that I can utilize to get at what each of you want. It is impossible for me to do, and both from a work standpoint and a budget standpoint, to address all of them at the same time. So my thought behind bringing Tiffany in was to really, she has the facilitation skills to get you each to a point of agreement, is my hope.
Is she the only game in town?
To do this,
Yes.
to be quite honest with you, yeah.
Well, you know, so this, here's,
I mean,
first of all.
I don't really.
We've said this, I've said this a million times, but I think it's worth repeating, and not that I need to defend Kevin's worker, but I would just suggest that rather than listen to what I'm saying, spend the time and go back and watch the tape, because Kevin was crystal clear that the proposals he put forward were meant to elicit feedback, and that's exactly what he did. He was not saying that these are plans.
That's
He
true.
was saying that the goal is to
true.
elicit feedback. So to say that his designs, I don't like his designs, no, you should be saying whether it worked as far as soliciting feedback, cause that's what the goal was.
But we
But
have-
putting that aside for a second, because that's only like the 20th time I've said that, putting that aside, I think what we should do, in my opinion, is do that, I don't see any harm in doing a request for whatever they're called, not proposals,
Expressions of
expressions of
And
interest.
that's a
And then you
private,
could get-
public.
But wait, but I think if we want, I
Well,
think.
let me back up a little bit, because I think it's important for you folks to know. So if you need to all agree that you want to examine underutilized properties in the realm of the comprehensive plan in downtown. The majority of those underutilized properties that exist today are town-owned. And when I say town-owned, it's the parking lots, it's the train station, those are considered in the planning realm of downtown revitalization, properties where there could be a higher potential use than a parking lot.
But at the same time, I think there's a lot of properties that are privately held going north of 120, the intersection towards Rite Aid and the post
Yes.
office. That corridor is destined to be something much more valuable and an asset. Whereas
Correct,
now,
and we have
it's-
done no public outreach, no knocking on doors to talk with those property owners. We set forth in the comprehensive plan an opportunity to do just that. That is vastly different than doing an expression of interest for underutilized land. Okay, and so certain things require public referendum. If you were to do anything on town-held property, you have to go out to public referendum. Prior to doing that, you need to institute an outreach process to involve the public and get the public sentiment regarding your plans. There are no plans out there.
All I'm saying is, I feel that when you give the public, you've got a choice of a black, what are those things called, good and plenties? Oh, you have a black good and plenty or a pink good and plenty, right? Like, oh, which one do you want?
They're
They're gonna like
They're
sit
black
there.
and white.
No, the white and pink.
One and pink.
Oh, are they
They're
white and pink?
I wouldn't.
Okay, this is my
Black
view,
inside.
this is my view about this, is that before our town is a disaster right now in terms of construction. I have a couple thoughts. First, if we go ahead and seek an expression of interest for developers to come in here and rip up the town right now, I think every resident is gonna come here with pitchforks and torches and wanna kill us. In my view, I would wanna kind of figure out just conceptually, before we get into anything concrete with interest, where do you wanna put this building, what are your visions for here? I think I would like to come up with conceptually what we think we want in terms of zoning, and some of it was in the comp plan, like in terms of general, we want, more residential and commercial and
Walkable, livable, blah, 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 blah,
walkable,
blah.
livable, but that was a little more general, but in terms of kind of where we'd want it, like, Jeremy just mentioned the corridor that's up there. I mean, maybe we wanna say, well, maybe we wanna put more residential there, like, I would like to kind of understand what the options are and what our zoning currently says we can do, how tall can buildings be?
See what it is right now? That's current zoning.
Okay, but I wanna understand how tall buildings can be, what options are that we can change, can we, everything, and understand what it is before we're asking a developer to come in and give us his sketch of what we want this to look like.
And here's the thing, your expressions of interest are on specific
I think
properties,
having-
it's not wholesale between
but-
lower and upper King Street.
But I agree.
You cannot do that.
I agree with Lisa that I think, I think it's premature for an RFI until we know we have better idea of what we wanna do and we wanna be on the same page.
I would also like to point out, prior, years ago, when we initially talked about infill development and repurposing public property, we did start to do some of the analysis that would be required as part of a generic environmental impact statement. And we did as much as we could for low cost. What we didn't move forward on was like a $20,000 geotechnical analysis of the subsurface area under Town Hall or under the South Commuter Lot. Because that's a real monetary investment for something that we know is needed if development was to be targeted for that piece of property. So I wanna just put those things in the back of your mind, is we need to get to a point where there's agreement and then there's public acceptance and agreement regarding future development in the
But
downtown.
if we were gonna do that, wouldn't we want, presumably, we're not doing the development,
Correct.
somebody else is coming in to do that, wouldn't we ask them to pay for those
You could.
studies?
You
When they
could.
bring in their proposal, much
We also don't wanna
like
do
we
it
have everyone
piecemeal.
else do their own secret analysis, we don't pay for that.
Sabrina.
You could, but part of the way, there's two choices to make, in the sense of offering, putting together a master plan for your sites. It's how serious you are, and are you gonna ask a developer to meet these needs, and what does that development look like? All those criteria that you're looking for, they can come in and present that to you. But then the question is, how serious is the town in making this happen?
Well, that's the problem, you see, here's the thing, when you talk about, when you talk about like developing, and I've said this before, when you talk about developing, like over to Legionnaire's property, everybody says development should be in downtown Chappaqua, that's where development should be. Not on the west end and not on the east end, it should be downtown Chappaqua. Then, of course, you talk about developing downtown Chappaqua, and people have a problem with that too. So here's the thing, I think that it's a little too ambitious to talk about the train station. That'll probably never happen while any of us are even living in this town. I think what we should do is attack it two different ways. One is to look at the zoning in downtown Chappaqua to attract as much housing as possible, because we need more people living in downtown Chappaqua. So some of these, there could be some accessory apartments, there could be some commercial buildings that they wanna have some, residential. Look at North Greeley, look at all the areas where we could attract as much residential as possible in downtown Chappaqua. As far as what we do at this train station, we could play around with that, we can, entertain ourselves. But nothing's really gonna happen with that. You know what I'm saying? That's not gonna happen so quickly. So I think we need to have, really get something done with zoning, and maybe bring Tiffany in to really talk about how we can change the zoning in downtown Chappaqua to get more people living down here.
She's not gonna be able to talk about how to change the zoning in downtown.
And then we can just all play around with this train station and pretend that we wanna help downtown, but nobody's willing to do it. You know what I'm saying? If we really are concerned about our downtown Chappaqua, if we're really concerned about the internet, if we're really concerned about the way this world is changing in front of our eyes, and all downtowns, our downtown is actually doing great compared to like some of these other towns that have 16 vacancies and 12 vacancies. The fact is, the world is changing in front of us.
No, I totally disagree.
Because downtown Chappaqua is doing so great right now, it's been booming. Downtown, please, Chappaqua Crossing hasn't even opened. So the fact is, if you really wanna address our downtown, it's gonna take some bold people, and maybe this isn't the town board to do it, but what we can do is at least focus on the zoning to get more residential in here.
I think people are willing to be bold, but I think we have to expand our focus beyond just the train station. The train station is not
That's what
downtown
I'm saying,
Chappaqua.
that's what I'm saying.
I
That's
think-
exactly what I just said.
I think like north of the intersection of 120
to do it because
to-
we don't
to-
have
to
people
the
with a
post
bold
office.
vision because we don't wanna develop the train station.
I'm saying there's two different things. Yeah, developing the train station is gonna take a town board that really has some that's gonna be a huge monumental thing. That's probably not gonna happen that's gonna take 20 years of talking about it before anything happens. Changing the zoning in downtown Chappaqua to allow more residential,
It's
up
called a
King Street.
rezoning, it's rezoning, it's a
rezoning downtown
analysis.
Chappaqua, that's something that we can do, and that's something that can actually have a short-term impact. Nothing is happening at this train station so quickly, let's face it, it doesn't matter who the town board is, nothing is happening at this train station so quickly.
I think that's fair, but I
large
think,
scale development has to be done, is gonna be done on a town owned property, you're not gonna, because individual property
be
owners own all the
surprised.
buildings, but it's very
You might be
easy for an individual property owner to say, oh, great, I can now add another story to my building for, or whatever it is.
And you wanna talk about bold, going and taking the town train station is expedient, is it bold? No, it's expedient.
let's look-
If you wanna talk about bold, what we really need to understand is what is the downtown lacking? And what is it that people really wanna come here so that they spend time, they spend money, they build community,
Oh,
they have,
thank you, we've been working on that thank you, welcome,
but-
welcome to downtown Chappaqua.
Well-
We need more people living downtown Chappaqua, that is not enough.
do.
I'm not
Paula.
arguing
We need
about
people living in
that. I'm not
downtown
arguing
Chappaqua.
it's a little bit
that.
of many things, there is no.
It's about, there's a whole lot of ways to do it, and if you wanna be bold, you gotta think bigger.
Oh, bigger
I
than
will tell you
bigger than
this-
transit oriented development.
This weekend,
You're right,
when
I'm
it
not
was the
thinking big
first
enough.
weekend
Sarcasm is
for a
not
lot of
necessary.
outdoor sports.
That's not thinking big enough.
Sarcasm
Hold on,
is
hold on.
not necessary.
Listen, I went around town yesterday and today, and this weekend was the first weekend that outdoor spring sports. The stores in downtown were so busy this weekend with kids, with parents, with people walking around because they were downtown. So I agree with Rob that if we have more people living here,
Nobody's
they're
arguing
gonna
that.
get out and walk around and
So
go to all
nobody's
these
if I
stores.
may, for a
We need
moment,
something
because you
bolder
guys
than
did,
transport
you
to the
did
building
study this.
downtown Chapel.
Folks, you did study this.
Of course we did.
The public outreach report asked the questions of what you liked about your town, what you didn't like about your town, what you think your town needed. In every session, folks talked about downtown Chappaqua. They wanted places to eat, to bring their families, they wanted shopping, they wanted
wanted to
some
walk.
entertainment venue, they wanted improved sidewalks. The problem with downtown, particularly the existing buildings, is that they are older buildings, they do not have the fire safety measures
Right.
or the size that would
Small
accommodate a family-friendly restaurant.
Exactly.
We have
We agree.
parking, we have parking issues in downtown. You know, so all of this has been identified. Changing the zoning in downtown, in Lower King and Upper King, is not going to effectuate big change in those buildings unless the folks are gonna tear them down.
Right.
Okay, if you change the zoning in Mid-King and you allow combination of properties, you may have single-family homes today who can't sell, combine properties with one developer buy them up and build townhouses. You know, those are the types of changes that can increase residences downtown. But you really want the ability to put service industry and not nail salons and hairdressers, but more food and family attractions in downtown. When you build a population at the train station or along King Street, you have to improve the sidewalks along King Street. You know, you have to give them access. 91 Bedford up at the top, across from Walgreens, is a new development which is completely zoning compliant. There are no variances on that project. Sidewalks are going in, connections so that those people living in those apartments can walk to the train station to go to work every day. There's the commercial space is designed for a restaurant and some other associated retail commercial uses, because that is what the community has wanted. That developer said, I'm buying this, the site, there was a fire there, I'm buying it and this is what I can build and I'm maximizing according to zoning. That's at the top of King Street, is the corner of your business hamlet. You can make zoning changes to try and allow the flexibility for property owners to join together and build these developments that can accommodate the parking, can accommodate the stormwater, can accommodate the floor area. That's relatively easy to do. That's a specific objective if you all agree on doing that. There's other issues with the existing strip, with the existing building, and Little Thai Kitchen experienced that, and the town was put on the hook for that. It wasn't the town, it was the county and fire and safety. And he does not have enough tables in his restaurant, which is why he's doing a booming takeout business. Okay, so if you look at all of those economics, and we've studied them, we had Chapel Crossing pay for several economic analyses down here so we could understand the economics of what's happening.
Well, I saw the one where that was included in the seeker report that was the.
HRNA?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then AKRF examined HRA's analysis for the town. AKRF was our
Did they write a
consultant.
separate report?
Yeah, there was a separate
Can you
report.
circulate that report?
I can find it and circulate it, absolutely. So we've done all these analyses, which has helped inform the comprehensive plan update. But you folks need to agree.
We do. Maybe a facilitator is wise.
I don't know. I am getting mixed messages from you.
Yeah, I'm getting mixed
I mean,
messages
honestly,
too.
I am getting mixed messages,
getting
and I'm
mixed
trying to
messages too.
facilitate. Sabrina, what studies do we need to do? What, I can.
No, I would like to see what that thing is, but I think that, if it wasn't combative at moments, I think that a lot of more productive discussion could happen to talk about what direction the hamlet,
No, we've had
Could
that, it's
go
called the
in.
comp plan.
as I said,
Okay, good. So what happens is,
I try,
If
I try.
you do try, and you forget that we have a
Stop
comprehensive
fighting.
plan.
I mean, really.
Listen,
Just
listen,
let-
let's
Rob,
get back to
Rob,
the,
Rob,
let's get back to the comprehensive
Rob,
plan.
Rob, time out,
Let's
time
get
out,
back to
Rob,
the
Rob,
comprehensive
just tell me
plan.
one second, finish speaking, Holly.
We don't need to.
Time out, just let Holly
Okay,
finish speaking, thank you,
please,
thank
finish
you.
speaking.
I think that there is definitely a way for us to be able to move this conversation and talk about what the future potential of the hamlet could be. And I agree with you, buildings will have to be torn down and new spaces created to accommodate parking and modern retail and all of that other kind of, more housing, all that stuff.
But not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily have to be.
It doesn't
toward-
have to.
Because there is
And it-
a lot of opportunity for
But it may-
development as well.
But that may be, again, as part of the visioning of what can end up happening. For example, people may not wanna necessarily have Middle King Street with all of the residential streets that are off of that. Maybe just right along the road, but not go thing, but maybe other areas it can be done more. But
And we may not want townhouses, I mean, you have a lot of single family houses too.
Yeah.
We may not want a whole development of townhouses.
I mean, I think,
But you know, I also just wanna acknowledge the fact that I am not a planner. I did not go to school for urban planning. I am not a planner, and we have a planning board, and we have a zoning board, and I would really like to bring them into this conversation
I would too.
because
Yeah,
I
Absolutely
feel like
have to
we
be a piece
have
of it.
experts who can help us
Yeah, of
interpret
course.
the comp plan. I'm not saying rewrite the comp plan, but I think what we're talking about here is how do we take what's in the comp plan and figure out how to implement
it's a
it, and what
practical
does that
application.
look like in real life?
So I would like to say just I don't disagree with bringing in other boards, but there's only one certified planner with a planning degree in this town. Okay, the planning board is composed of volunteers which have specialties in other areas. They have been sitting on a planning board reviewing projects. They're very knowledgeable, very intelligent in what they do, but I have to say, I am the certified planner in the town, and the planning board is not composed of certified planners or people
That
who
may be
went to
true, but they
planning
also have
school.
more practical experience than anyone
Yes,
of
they
us
do,
have.
and I'm not disagreeing with
Wait,
the
we would
premise
make a
of bringing
decision
them
without
in.
them,
sorry,
obviously.
is
I do not
hired
disagree.
by communities
Okay,
to
with it-
do exactly this.
I do
That
not-
is his business.
Listen, I do not
Greg
disagree
Zanzari
with bringing
has done
them
the most
in.
amazing work, if you've ever
Okay.
seen his portfolio, he is hired, paid a lot of money by communities to re-envision their future.
Listen, guys.
And he comes up with concrete plans, so I think to sort of diminish the expertise on the planning board, you know.
I'm not, please, no, I am not
Nobody's
diminishing the
diminishing-
expertise on the planning board, and I am not supporting bringing them into the conversation. I am saying there are many times where people feel that the planning board is composed of professional planners, and they are not, and I'm just
But you
making
can
that
work with
correction.
them, right? You
Guys.
work-
Yes,
Guys, listen.
I'm not, nothing against
Sabrina,
them,
what is
please.
your recommendation for how we should move forward as a board?
Let me just say one thing before she says that.
Yeah.
We could, everybody here can complain about Chapel Crossing, okay? We could all sit here and say Chapel Crossing, it's gonna kill the downtown, and we could all point fingers at who's to blame for it, it doesn't make a difference.
We haven't done that.
The bottom line is, no, but the whole, I'm putting that aside, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is that Chapel Crossing is coming online, and now we have a choice. We have a choice, and listen, what I said 1 week before the election, okay?
We have a
I'm getting
choice.
to my point. No, but this is it. This is what I said. 1 week before the election, 5 years ago, when that town board was gonna adopt the finding statement, I said, what are you people gonna do to bolster our town downtown when you pass this, adopt this finding statement? Because it's gonna suffer, and you're gonna have to do something. So right now, Chapel Crossing is coming online in a matter of months. And we have a decision now what we're gonna do to bolster our downtown. We're the elected officials.
Why are you
Okay?
yelling at us?
So I'm not
Feels
yelling,
like
this is
you're
the way,
yelling at us.
this is the way I talk. So I'm not yelling, so here's our choices. We can sit here, we can
passionate.
sit here, yeah, because I've been working on this for a long time. We can sit here and we can talk about studying, and we should, or we can make some moves. The chap line is a no-brainer. We bring 400 people to downtown Chapakua. Getting this, Jesus Christ, this is a public session, is that nice language? We have a train station
we
here
should talk
that's
about it,
7
I think
that's 7
actually
acres long.
would be
You
great.
people, listen, you guys can
always
talk
do.
about Chapel Crossing, and you can talk about how you wanna help downtown Chapakua, or you can actually take actions as a town board member. And I'm not talking about when you're opposed to things. I'm not talking about saying that
Ivy.
development should be in downtown Chapakua. Listen, Ivy,
Holla.
listen, Hala,
it's alright.
You gotta
I gotta
talk
tell you
about,
something.
you gotta talk about what you wanna do to downtown Chappaqua.
Great, you
Not
know
just
what?
when it's opposition to things. What are your, how are you gonna
I
help
think
downtown
the
What are we
Chappaqua?
yelling about? But we all want the we all want the
Because,
same thing,
because people say two different things,
No, no, no,
when
no.
it comes, you say you want development
We have
downtown
different ways
Chappaqua,
of
when you're
getting there, but
opposed to
we all
things.
want the same
Exactly.
thing. Why are we yelling at each other?
We're not yelling. What I'm saying
This
is
is
that,
yelling.
what I'm saying is that we have to take bold moves right now.
Wait,
We have to,
yelling.
we have to take,
But it's-
No, but
we
it's
have to take,
inappropriate.
we have to, Ivy, let me
Right,
talk.
let's- everyone
We have to
sit
take
down and
bold
just-
moves right now. I'm talking and you, we have to take bold moves right now because we're dealing with a changing economy, we're dealing with Chapel Crossing coming online, and now's the time to do it. And we're running out of time because downtowns all around us are dying. So either we sit here and we just talk about like, you know, let's study, or we actually
so Rob,
start
what's the-
making
What's
some
the
moves.
thing that you think we're not doing that we're supposed to do?
We should, this is what we should do, everything, all of the above. We should bring in Tiffany and talk about zoning. We should get requests from developers and show us their
Tiffany
plans.
cannot talk to you about
We
zoning,
can bring in,
folks.
do everything we can.
Tiffany's,
Well, what's the point of Tiffany?
Facilitation.
Tiffany was to bring you
What?
all to the same,
Facilitation.
to facilitate
Alright,
you
so
to work
here's my
together on the
suggestion.
same goal, because right now I'm getting different
Here's my
direction from
suggestion.
each of you
Here's my
regarding how to
suggestion.
implement this goal.
Here's my suggestion, what do you guys think about having a, for lack of a better term, a special session with Sabrina and the planning board, a brainstorming session to sit down, again, they're not
Yeah.
your position, but they still have knowledge. Each of us can share in advance some of our thoughts, which they probably know anyway, and if not, they certainly are familiar with the comp plan and what the plans are potentially for downtown and what's happening now, because they're intimately involved. And they can express their views to help at least give us guidance. And that doesn't mean it's a study, doesn't mean we have to do any of the things, it doesn't mean that it doesn't cost us anything, and it doesn't mean that what you're saying is gonna happen, what I'm saying is gonna happen, what Hal is saying is gonna happen. We sit down in advance, give them the information, we sit down and if they're willing to do it, have an hour, 2 hour powwow.
Right,
And then we could say, alright, you know what, you guys are never gonna succeed because,
And have a professional facilitator at that meeting to help you get
right,
there.
but you're never gonna succeed
Maybe, I
because
don't
if you can't
necessarily
allow
wanna pay
two-zone,
Tiffany to-
two-story buildings in X location, it's never gonna work. It's never gonna succeed because, or will succeed, but you have to consider how is traffic flow gonna be impacted, you know, in front of Bell and getting to the train station. You need a better area for people to congregate, just ideas to that they can help facilitate
Of course.
now in the practical sense. And if you want action now, it's not just saying, let's have the chap line, which may in fact be a valuable asset, but let's sit with that. I can't remember the last time, we've done it once in the past, twice in the past 2 years, sat with the planning board and really brainstormed.
do it every year.
We sat with the
Right,
planning board and
so-
came to
No,
Chapel,
couple years,
we sat with the planning board and came to Chapel Crossing. I have no problem sitting with the planning board.
So let's throw our ideas
My
out
issue
there.
is that we should be exploring every
Yes,
single thing
this should be one of
possible
them.
to help downtown Chapel. And we shouldn't
I'm
just
not-
complain about Chapel Crossing coming online.
But that's stuff, we're not.
We
No,
should-
Nobody is
but the
complaining
point is,
about
Rob, I agree with you, we have to look at everything, but
It's
we
done
have
is
to
done.
figure out how to look at everything. Just throwing out, oh, let's look at this, let's look at
Yeah,
this, let's
little
look at
pieces.
Then you've got Sabrina
Yeah.
in like 80 different directions.
We've
So
done
I
that,
do,
folks.
but
Right.
I
We've done
agree,
that.
but
Let's bring it home.
everything should be on the table,
Let's-
nothing should be
let's
off
bring
the
it home
table.
and
I don't know
schedule
anything that's
something.
off the table.
I think it'll be valuable.
And I think
I
we
think
have
it's
to
valuable.
do
It's
Chapel.
Of course I think it's gonna be valuable, and I'm in favor, my only point is that I just think that we need to the more we can do, and I'm not saying we make any decisions yet, I'm just saying let's just do, we gotta
Yes,
move.
I'm in
We
agree-
gotta-
I'm in
we
agreement.
gotta
I don't
think, our
disagree with
goal,
that.
How do you wanna move?
my only goal should be this.
Well, that's the
It should not be a development versus anti-development
Trying to help
conversation.
you.
But it's not.
It should
I don't
be,
think
it should
it
be,
is.
this should
I
be a
don't think
conversation,
anybody's
this should be a
It's a question of
conversation,
where the
this should be a
development should be and how it
conversation
should
of
be.
what can we do, this is my only point I'm trying to make. Our focus should be on how are we going to bolster this downtown so that it's
Fair.
sustainable.
Fair.
Yes.
And not only in light of the changing the changing economics of the internet, but also with Chapel Crossing. We need to really
Okay.
be intensive stuff to bolster our downtown Chapel.
But I don't think
And it's
anyone
not,
disagrees
it's
with
not Band-Aids. We need some serious
Correct.
decisions, and honestly, I'm 100% serious. I don't think we're ever gonna have a transit-oriented development at this train station. But I will say this, like, there are some towns who would like die for the opportunity to own 9 acres of town-owned land around the train station, and like the solution to our problems is staring us right in the face. And I'm not saying we're ever gonna do it, because we're not, because a decision like that would take years and years and years, and it's not happening so quickly. But honestly, that's the type of conversations we need to be having, because we are facing some major problems, and it's not just Chapel Crossing. Downtowns all over the country have to figure out what to do.
And I think we're all in agreement on that point, and I think that we are all willing to be bold in our thinking and to be proactive and to act quickly in order to help the downtown merchants, especially as we're bringing Chapel Crossing online. I don't think anybody's disagreeing with anything you're saying. I think it's just that we have to be willing to consider all options, that it can't be start and stop at the train station. It has to be
Of course,
a broader vision.
that's why I said we should be looking at zoning for everything besides a train station. You know, with again, there might be North Greeley and some of the businesses that wanna have accessory apartments and things like that. And a separate conversation for this. We can't be, I don't wanna be hung up on this, that's part of my point too. I don't wanna be hung up on this train station here, cause I don't think actually it's gonna happen so quickly. We need to take other steps that can actually happen quickly, like changing the zoning to allow accessory apartments in some of these buildings and
The zoning already allows accessory apartments.
I think we need to talk bigger timelines.
Sabrina, I've had two property owners email me about wanting to put in apartments in their building. I forwarded to you, and your response was, this is the conversation we need to have when the comp plan is adopted.
Those are not accessory apartments, Rob.
Okay, whatever they are, but these are property owners that wanted to put in apartments and they weren't allowed to by the current zoning, and you said this is the exact conversation we need to happen
Because there's
once
not
the comp
enough
plan is
land
adopted.
area because of stormwater and parking. So again, there's a land area restriction in downtown, and you need to relax the parking requirements, cause you cannot relax the stormwater requirements.
But these are the type of conversations we have to have, because these are people that wanna put in housing to get more people living down here, and they can't under the current system we have right now.
There may also be, there may also be a golden opportunity, not necessarily for us directly, but two Walgreens in one, less than a square mile may mean the death of Rite Aid, which could be an opportunity potentially for a developer to come there. I mean, you're talking north of Susan Lawrence. There's so many opportunities, so maybe, my family, my grandfather bought a building in the 1930s, and someone bought it about half a dozen years ago just to knock it down to, a bunch of buildings in the city to put something. The point being, maybe someone will see this opportunity and look across the street, because that area there, I don't wanna use the term ghost town, but people go down King and hang a left. People go down and hang a left. There could be a reason to hang a right that doesn't impact the traffic, but impacts in a positive way the foot traffic for people to walk downtown.
People should be living down there.
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
so do we have to look at the zoning there, what can incentivize someone from coming in? Maybe that Rite Aid becomes a multi-family, commercial.
How high do you wanna go?
I don't know the answer, I'm not, 2 stories, 3 stories, I don't know that
There are
answer.
stories,
schools.
3 stories.
I will
Yeah, I don't know the
tell you.
answer.
That's nothing,
I don't
it should
know
be
the
4 or
answer.
5.
I don't, but the problem is, the thing is, the point being, I
Yeah,
don't
what do
know,
you-
that's
I
why I
mean,
want the
go
planning
out
board to
there.
go, I can't vision, what's this, building 3 stories?
There are tools that will show you the elevations and the 3D perspective
two,
of
or
what
can
would
they
on the second
happen.
floor?
No, I understand that, but
There
I don't
Yeah, I'm not a
absolutely
designer.
are.
Well, but so, okay, so
I didn't
I'm
mean that way.
actually,
And then-
I'm
to
actually
the top of that,
hearing
would that constitute,
consensus.
if you had another level up, would it
But
be
we
a
don't
whole-
own that property, so
Jeremy,
we
I'm
can't
actually
make-
hearing
But we can zone for it
consensus
to make it attractive.
that we
Yeah.
take a look at North Greeley with an
Definitely.
eye towards
Actually,
adding housing where
They
feasible.
doesn't count for the floor.
And possibly mixed use as well, possibly having some commercial
And
development.
I think we
there.
have
So
to
what I would
seriously
like
add the
consensus
chap line
on, to be
discussion
quite
about it.
honest with you,
That's
is to
gotta get back on the agenda.
re-examine
Well,
the
put it all
commercial
in,
zone, because
but I
Rite
think
Aid
we
is
could
the
be
same
holistic
zone
thing, and that's
that is
not-
all the way
that's not
down
zoning.
Greeley.
that may be true,
It
but I
stops
think
there.
we
We'd have
should
to
look
completely
see what we can,
re-examine all that
because
zone.
our views
Correct, and if that's
That's
where
not
you
what
all
comes to
agree,
here,
where
and
you
we're
wanna
trying to develop
spend
the
the
area and try
effort
to
right
incentivize
now,
property
we
owners
can
to
do that.
build that up,
But I
all
think
of a
we,
sudden you have
I think that
corridor
would be a
that
really
flows
productive,
naturally
it's
into-
flat,
Yeah.
it's easy to walk, you're listening, are you?
But I understand, I believe you.
Saying that doesn't require zoning.
Hold on, I believe you.
Oh, that piece doesn't, right, I
don't have
wanna
to
look at it
convince me.
holistically. So, alright, so how are we leaving this now that we all went back and forth?
Where do y'all stand?
My vote, if there's such a thing, is to have a sit down with the planning board, just because I need someone who can
I'd like that,
help me
yeah.
visualize, because I'm not skilled. If you're charged with a crime, I can help you, I swear. But if you want me to figure out how to build and what to do, if this is 2 stories or 3,
I agree 100% with the planning board, my only point was that I don't want everything we do to get caught up, listen, I would love to see something at this train station, but I don't want what we're doing to get entangled in that, because this is gonna be a long-term situation.
You're the one who keeps bringing it up, let's just do it, you're the one who brings it up.
No, but I don't want, I
Let's
want it
just
to be
do
two
it.
separate conversations, that's my point. It should be two separate conversations, it could happen in the same day, but we need to take steps that are short-term and we need to take steps that are long-term. And that's
Okay,
my
and looking
point.
at it over the next, let's just say for the next month, to make some decisions or get some ideas and meet with the planning board is not, that's still short term, I mean, short term doesn't have to be
Yeah.
next week, short term could be 2.5 months from now, that's still short term.
Right, the zone, changing the zoning is short-term.
So let's sit down and get the planning board and have a meeting together.
And I think we should bring in Tiffany for that, to facilitate it.
Maybe.
She's a professional.
What's she gonna do?
I saw a little.
Just gonna make sure we don't fight.
I'm not saying a word
We
here,
need to
I'm
pay her?
looking for
Are we
direction.
paying her?
You want me, not at all, you
Not
want me, well, no, you would probably pay Tiffany, I mean, this is work.
Right.
Facilitating
So let's get the
meetings.
planning
I don't
board,
know that
my
I
view
wanna
is,
pay her necessarily
Wait,
yet. I
this
am gonna
community,
wait
it's a
for
lot of
this
work,
to happen.
folks.
my vote is let's sit down with the planning board, let's get it next week if they can, when is it, let's figure out something, is that, is.
Well, you're gonna have to find out when they're available.
Yeah,
I mean, we know, he's just.
Alright, so as soon as possible, it's fine.
Okay.
And then we
I will
can
schedule a
bounce,
meeting.
bounce the chop line off and
You
bounce
guys,
this
I'm gonna
off.
have to go, I have a really, really, really bad headache.
Okay. Feel
Right.
better.
I miss you already.
That's so sweet, here you go.
That was sincere for the record.
Yep, this is here for the day.
Okay.
Listen, honestly, I'm not,
I gotta say full.
What?
With all due respect,
What?
sir.
I'm willing to bounce the chap line off the planning board, but I don't
It's
need,
not a
I don't need,
planning issue.
yeah, I don't need a planning issue, I mean, it's not a planning issue,
No,
it's
but
basically,
they help
if you could attack, if you could,
Part of a basic
if you could get a walking trail for 400 families, 400 homes to come to downtown Chappaqua, it's just, it's honestly,
Please, you've got
That's-
all the high school
a
kids
no-brainer.
who have
But
3 hours
Rob,
breaks
Rob,
in the
one is
middle of the
nothing,
day,
so what is
Tuesday,
nothing to do with the other,
here.
that may be true, but let's get, if you may want a quick action, let's do it. Let me just hear from them what their thoughts are, because I just don't know,
I understand, but
and then we can ignore it or.
We can make a unilateral
the
decision about
point is
that.
that, I mean, if we really wanna help downtown Chappaqua, these are the type of things we should be doing.
Okay,
These are
so
easy
put it on the
things.
agenda and have a conversation about it, but.
It's a no-brainer, I understand some people are opposed to it, I get it, there's definitely gonna be some people that are
It's not
opposed.
just some people, there's
There are a lot of
pretty
people
deep
opposed.
opposition.
Oh yeah, Chestnut Oaks, we
what?
have, Chestnut Oaks is sort of.
Chestnut Oaks and all
We
the
have an
property
easement for them,
owners
we
that
have,
abut.
we have an easement.
Not all of them, only a couple.
It's for them, we don't.
Only a couple
I
of them.
appreciate how many it is, but it's all of them.
No,
It's not
it's
all
not
of
all of them,
them.
and we have to do
It's
what's
not
best,
even close
we have
to
to do
all
what's
of
best
them.
for the merchants and best for the town, not because some people don't have the ability to see how this is actually gonna enhance their
No,
property value.
It's not even close to all of them, and the number of people I have
Listen,
emailing
I
me
can
that we
appreciate-
need
Talk
this,
to
we
other
need this, we
brokers.
need this, and
Forget
all
the
the people in
brokers.
the
I can
election who
appreciate
said we
someone
need a
wanted
way
to
to get
build
safely
a
from there
path
to
to build that
downtown,
property.
and we can't build sidewalks on 117, there's your answer.
The bottom line is, I personally am not saying no, it'll never happen, I'm ruling it out, but instead of going in
I'm not
circles here,
either. I'm just
let's
pointing
just
out
get,
there is
let's just have this
actual
conversation,
opposition.
get it on the
To
table.
everything, you're never gonna get everyone to
Alright,
agree
are we
to
done,
everything.
so we're gonna try to.
Can we move to,
Yes.
I know, planning board, got it, and yeah, maybe we'll have some.
No, I
Great.
agree,
Well,
we
good night,
talked to them, but it's not
everyone.
that many people. Goodbye.
Listen, Chestnut Oaks is the reason we got an easement there, right? So that's done, that's an easy one.
Alright, let's discuss the park, are we jumping around or what are we doing next?
Right?
Cause I had some,
And
What,
parking,
can we, yeah, sure, let's do the possible change orders, cause we're gonna need to move along. So these are the change orders that we have been waiting for Boswell, it's for the engineering drawings for ADA compliance. It is, there's gonna be a resolution, it is a total of $40,250, that includes a 10% contingency. It involves 3 different tasks, but basically because we have areas in our downtown that we know we will not be able to be ADA compliant, either because we have staircases and not enough space to put handicap ramps, or the grade on the slope coming down the street is too great, we can't meet the maximum grades that we're supposed to be making. In order to be ADA compliant, we're going to need exceptions, and those exceptions require
Jill,
engineering drawing, yep.
can you remind me, is the reason we need this change order because WSP screwed up again?
No, it's because we are on serious hills in
But
our
we were on the
downtown.
serious hill before, why is it a
we
change
didn't
order?
make a hill, like
I
they didn't look
understand.
at ADA compliance.
No, there's nothing they can do about the hill to make it less ADA compliant. Unfortunately, our town is grandfathered in to a certain extent. But New York State DOT, because we're working in the state's right of way, that's where our sidewalks are. In order, because of new more stringent ADA requirements and pedestrian crossway requirements, if we cannot meet their minimum grades, and the same thing happened on the 120 sidewalk coming down from Grafflin School, you need to put in engineering drawings, we needed additional survey work to be done, and we need to prove to New York State that there is nothing that we can do to correct the situation to be ADA compliant.
This is due to changes that have gone into effect
More stringent,
subsequent to
yes,
the
this was
original
all,
plans.
yes. So the problems that we had with ADA compliance under WSP was that they did not give us the minimum width of the sidewalk, the clear passages, the 4-foot minimum width, and they had to take and redo the sidewalks, the drawings for all the sidewalks, which is why there were significant change orders, and that's why we remain in a bit of a disagreement with WSP regarding those outstanding bills, because it's an interesting business model that you don't produce plans that are ADA compliant, and then when you get snagged on it, you turn around and bill us to redo them.
And it's an interesting business model to tell WSP that you're not going to get said dollars that are owed.
Well, let's
Which is what we did. Unfortunately, when we had to go back to them for sanitary sewer, it made for a very interesting
Okay,
conversation.
some of this might be
Still-
executive
yeah,
session.
still,
Yeah, so
It's
it's
not
okay.
talks about public.
Anyway, so, okay.
So you're saying either way, we would have had to redo this now?
Yes. And these are additional requirements that New York State
And
DOT now
are there any kinds of grants that we can get, because DOT is requiring us to spend in excess of $40,000?
No. It's for the honor of replacing the sidewalks along the roads.
Do we have to say thank you?
I'm sure we do.
Okay, so that's good.
So this is the second half of the change order. If the board recalls, back in December or January, we actually approved ELQ's additional survey work, which formed the basis
Right.
of these engineering drawings.
Okay,
There's a resolution?
We'll do it at the end.
Okay, will you remember? Okay, let's remember to do that.
we'll remember.
Okay, parking, so,
So may I ask, if I may, ask some
Yes.
questions about the
Yeah.
parking. Well, with all due respect.
yes, sir.
So, when you're writing these off, it's not like writing off bail because that gets forfeited back to the town.
That's true.
Writing this off, we're just saying, oh, we're never gonna see it again.
Yes.
So very different definitions of writing it off. So here are my questions, some legislation that I know was changed relatively recently, we increased the fines, for example. One of our issues is, if I remember correctly, is that because it's a town violation, it's not a state violation, therefore you can't suspend a license or something like
It would
that.
be a registration, not a license.
You would,
DMV suspends a registration associated with, I think it's 3 or more tickets over an 18-month period.
a local ticket?
Yep.
Alright,
Yeah, Mount Kisco does.
3 or more
that.
unpaid parking
You can
tickets
do
within an
registration.
18.
do we regularly do that?
We do, the problem is that people turn in their registrations on a regular basis. So they get new license plates, every time they have a 2-year lease, they turn in their plate,
Okay, so then,
they walk away from it.
thinking a few things, so,
Sure.
in terms of legislation, after, for example, 45 days after an appearance date, if someone doesn't appear, assuming that it's not adjourned for a trial or something, they're fighting it, so you just don't appear. So you have 30 days to come in, whatever date you're given, another 45 days after that. Why don't we then say, and put people on notice and send them a notice, if it's local, your parking permit is going to be revoked in 45 days.
Yeah, these people don't have parking permits.
Hold on, but with not, some of them must, because
Can't
people
redo
get
it.
paid at the end of the year. So that's one of the issues, a lot of people wait till the end of the year to pay, correct? So we say you don't get your in 45 days after your due date, you don't pay it or you're not actively fighting it, your license gets revoked.
Wait, you're what, gets
You're sorry, you're not your license, your
parking
parking
permit.
permit, my apologies, gets revoked.
Well, could we do that? We could, the machine that he goes around to scan.
Well, they
it
end
could
up being
still-
so
So if you're out there parking and we revoked your license, pardon me, I'm sorry.
Parking permit.
Parking permit,
they would be
Just get more tickets.
well, how many times, right, you get more tickets,
Well-
but eventually you're still gonna have to get them if you wanna
We could
down the
boot them,
road.
just
So
Same
he
thing.
goes
We can-
around with a license plate reader,
yeah,
identifies those who are on the list,
right,
and then boots them if they meet the criteria, which I
Right.
think is three or more.
But do we ever do that?
we do, but most of these people do not have parking permits.
Okay,
we-
so then if you are a resident and you don't have a parking permit, is there a way, for example, to transfer those dollars after a certain period of time? It gets transferred to your local tax bill?
You know,
Can't we boot
So
the
that-
cars?
So
Can't we boot the cars?
Yeah,
we
if-
can.
That
if
would
we-
get people to.
Right, but
So
if you just let me
the
finish my,
booting is-
if you just let me finish my, just what I'm
Yes,
thinking out
sure,
loud, I
absolutely.
apologize.
It's found on the
So,
street, it gets booted.
for example, if you don't pay your water bill, it rolls over to your tax bill.
Right.
So if you don't pay your
Ticket,
parking
they can
ticket,
look it up.
it'll roll over to your tax bill.
I thought
Yeah,
that's
but it's,
state
I
law.
don't think you
Your
can.
local, you can't roll over to your local tax?
I'll check into it, I'm thinking it's not at all related to your property tax.
Alright, now, when you look at these
Property.
numbers here, when you, or even, let's think of another way to do it. If you owe a parking ticket, you cannot register your family members in a local
Program.
program, basically, you're not looking to
That I
stick
think
it to
you could do,
people.
yes.
You're not gonna stick, but you have, whether you wanna make it 60 days, we can't allow $100,000 to be not collected over a span of 10 years. 10 grand a year plus is a lot of money, whatever that number was, but let's just say 10 grand a year. If we now say, oh, you wanna register an X associated with the town, that's fine and good, but you have an outstanding parking ticket of $45, you have to pay that before you can register. It doesn't have to be publicly humiliated, but you just advise as such when it comes time to register. The other thing I was thinking of is, this doesn't reflect who is from Newcastle, it just says New
Right,
York
I
State.
was gonna say,
Well, that's what I was
I
gonna
don't
say.
know how many actually are our residents.
But
I bet
so
a lot of these aren't.
here's the flip though. I would imagine many of them are Mount Kisco, Mount Pleasant, Pleasantville, Armonk, North Castle, whatever. Is there a means by which we can discuss with these local municipalities, Nick, to have some sort of reciprocity? Where they will enforce it's a jurisdictional issue,
Right.
but is there a way that we can
I don't understand
share
what you're trying to get
enforcement?
to, right?
So that there's a consequence, if you do not pay your parking ticket in North Castle, if you are stopped in Newcastle, there's a consequence, whichever is X. Maybe that's a ticket of some sort, maybe that's, I have to think about it, or we could transfer the collection, we will take your residents in Newcastle who don't have their tickets paid in North Castle.
Right.
We will share, let's give you our tickets for them and figure out how to, we'll buy them back at a price.
Logistical.
But
How about you
$100,000 is a
sell-
lot of money.
No,
How
it
about
is
you
a lot
sell
of
it to the
money.
state? I wonder if the state would buy the tickets.
I know what you're thinking, I think.
State would buy
Like
the
securitization of
The state might not, but Newcastle, but
It
Newcastle,
doesn't-
Buy it, and then when
it doesn't pay
they,
for us to go through an
because
but
of
but
the
listen,
benefits.
but
What
if
happens is
Newcastle,
that
if
they
Newcastle making up the number has $5,000 in parking tickets and North Castle has $5,000 in parking tickets, arguably we could swap them out in some way and we'll go after ours and they'll go after theirs. There's gotta be a mechanism to do that.
I am happy to try
There
to go
has to be a
through
mechanism.
these
Because
and
if you
try to figure out
extrapolate
who's
this
local.
out to all these municipalities, you're
When
talking
do you get
millions
arrested?
and millions and millions and millions and millions.
People
For
get
parking.
arrested for unpaid parking tickets.
Well, I don't wanna see,
Yes.
I'm just asking,
Yes, I
when you
mean,
get
so this
arrested, I mean,
report, this
people
report that the
do.
Which
controller's
has some
office
suggestions.
had some suggestions, I read it.
Arrest warrant, civil actions, collection
Yeah,
agencies.
I'm not suggesting
We don't
that.
want
The
it.
same thing
no, I'm
goes
not
with
either, I was
dogs
just
who are not
curious.
licensed, you never enforce that. If you
people
don't allow someone to
pay.
register and enroll and,
Right.
in
Yeah, I mean,
something.
the recourse is to take an action against the registration of the car or not allow that person to re-register another car. That's really the way it should work.
But
is
if
that
it's
you
not
should-
working, because we're out that kind of money, we're actually have a good 94% collection is
We have to have a great collection rate, I don't.
But $100,000 is a lot of money, whether it's 2% or 18%.
I understand, but the problem is that as you go further from the date of the ticket, So if you were talking 12 years, your chances of recovering that.
Right, to a certain extent, you're gonna lose that, but going
Right,
forward,
so at what point do we make a determination that, you know, instead of having 15 years worth of outstanding tickets on our books, we're gonna take a look at the last 5 and make a concerted effort to take and go after that money?
that's probably reasonable, but I think there needs to potentially have intermunicipal cooperation, and if we can facilitate that
Well,
and
possibly, but
attach
Right, but I-
consequences outside of the vehicular arena, just, again, registering to take a class or.
But why couldn't if these tickets were transferred to the state, if all local municipalities transferred their tickets somehow to the state and tied these tickets, so basically the state legislation is that you can't renew your car registration if you have outstanding tickets in any municipality, right? And we essentially transfer these tickets to the state, and then we let the state collect them, and then we get a percentage
Well,
of
that
it.
is the current law, the DMV scofflaw program, is that you cannot register your car until you settle the,
Re-register.
re-register rather, the fines.
But is that
And
for local
you
tickets?
can't re-register your plate, and so the thing is that
Yes.
the
But it's
loophole is you
expensive.
just.
Even if it's for local tickets.
Even if it's for local
Yes.
tickets, right?
Right, but you suspend the registration,
Right.
I walk in, I turn in, you know, I walk away from the plate, walk away from the car.
Yeah, but that's not
I turn-
happening, how can that be happening?
That happens,
I mean, it
every
can
other
happen.
all the
Piece on
time.
your car.
So you can't get a new, so it should be that,
When you re-register, you can get
I
new
don't know.
plates.
They
It's
report
like
them
an
off
extra
to
$20.
so they should close that loophole, so if you're trading in, getting a new plate, it should attach to the person and not the plate.
With all due respect to the state
It's attached to the
legislature,
license.
with all due respect to the state legislature, I can't imagine that's happening anytime soon, so we can do something more
Yeah.
immediate, so let's look at, we can advocate for that, but I think, you know,
Well, it would be a revenue generator for them, but you're right, it's not happening, so.
right,
it's-
it's,
Should attach
come
to
on,
the
they can't,
license,
you
though,
know.
you're right.
So just
the
taking a
plate.
step back, what is the advantage to us of writing off these tickets? Why are
Well,
we proposing that?
You get a tax
Because
exemption.
the state controller says you need to monitor your tickets and you should either make efforts to collect it or remove it from your books because it's no longer a collectible receivable.
Do
It's
they
just,
say that? Because I read the report and it never said at any point that we should write off tickets. That wasn't one of the recommendations that they were making to
well,
us.
it's not right on, well, actually, I think there is.
No,
What about
they
a collection
recommended an
agency?
amnesty program, but that's different from writing off tickets.
No, I agree, it's different, but I
Yeah.
recall,
What about a
I
collection
believe that
agency?
there was supposed to be a policy on when you walk away from them.
Are we allowed to use a collection agency?
We tried that, and it was very minimally
So I got
effective.
$13,000 or so we
Better
No,
than
but-
nothing, $13,000 better than nothing, though.
No,
They get a cut,
13
don't they?
I still think that if we can levy this fine through another creative method and have some reciprocity, Nick, and attach it to a tax bill, a local tax bill, a local water bill, a local something bill. Can it be somehow
I don't know if
directed,
it can be
can it be
attached to a
redirected to the
tax
parking
bill.
district, can it be a
Water,
like all the money be directed to a,
I think it's an interesting
Park
question, I think
water
it's
up.
worth pursuing,
No,
just
it
to
is. I
sort
mean,
of figure out what our
right,
recourse
I
is
don't wanna throw
locally.
it, reject it out of hand.
let me think of this,
Should
raising
be
my
done at
hand
the
again.
county level, maybe.
If we created we have a parking district, right? If we superficially assessed every house a parking district tax, which it could be $1, just nothing there.
Right.
But by doing so, we've now created a district that can receive and is associated with parking that tax, right? And if you don't pay your parking ticket and you're in the parking district, that then gets put onto the parking district tax.
Which is fine for residents, question is, of the outstanding, what percent are residents versus non-residents? I don't
Bet a
know
lot
if
of them are non-residents.
the traffic court can run that statistic. But I think you're right, we need to be looking at it from a different way to see if we could.
But we talk about, again, the neighboring municipalities, and I'm willing to bet without knowing the numbers, that the majority of those non-Newcastle residents are gonna be within, a dozen communities neighboring us. I mean, I don't think many people from North Carolina are just coming to hang out in Newcastle.
What
No,
what
but
about?
it's people that were transferred here for a certain period of time.
Well, some are gonna have to accept it, you're gonna have to,
No,
What about,
absolutely.
what about we hire a collection company and we offer some sort of like amnesty period, where you basically say,
You did that,
you,
right?
you pay this within 30 days and you get, you only have to pay 50% or something.
or you don't
Well,
pay at all,
that's-
we don't do anything about it.
Right, so that's what we did years ago.
We
So
did this.
we did it from 1990 to 2005, we did it in 2005, and we had $100,000 of uncollected parking tickets, and we ended up
Only clearing 13,000.
13,000.
But that's fine, that's 13,000.
But it's
But it doesn't cover the cost of.
of the
Well,
collection
rate-
rate.
but collection
Don't they
usually
just
make
take a percentage?
Yeah, usually make
Why would
percentage.
we-
They have a minimum,
They have a minimum.
But there's
They
other
have to
companies
put-
out there, there's companies
They-
out
well,
there that
then
we
they
should
should do a
get.
better
If we
job.
collect 13,000, they get 6, so 6,500, that's the way it usually works. That's the way it should work.
Yeah,
We need
okay, that
to-
is the way it
Well,
works.
well, I know you say that, but it
There's gotta
was,
be a
it was a
mechanism.
ridiculous number of,
Maybe I'm
it was the efforts were for 2,426 tickets. And so we didn't meet their minimum. At $20 or $40 a ticket, we didn't make their minimum,
Well, then you
so
get a smaller
plenty-
guy.
yeah, there's plenty of people out there
guys
that are
who
scrambling
work,
for
who
this
work
work.
on a contingency.
Exactly, I think, I'm not saying it's, Jeremy's idea should be pursued, but I think getting some guy who's working on a contingency, I don't see a downside, and especially then if we can offer an incentive for people to pay, you know, if you know you're gonna get collection letters and the letters are threatening, and now you're getting a chance to pay like a half price or something like that, I think a bunch of people could benefit. I mean, I know from my clients, cause they get collection letters all the time. from
Someone
medical
call me about a
providers.
parking ticket in some place I don't live and out of state even, I'd be like,
If it's gonna screw with your credit rating, you might.
Yeah, that's the thing,
Yeah.
that's the point.
yeah,
Some of
so-
these people don't care about their credit rating, but a lot of people do.
What?
So
I don't-
you wanted to write off the tickets and instead we've just told you, it's recommended that you come up with more ideas for how to collect
them,
the
and I
very,
can't.
very small percentage of
You're never gonna collect, you're never
You're
gonna
frustrated.
collect, you're never gonna collect it worth your time to try to collect a 12-year-old, 10-year-old parking ticket for $40.
And we have to
Ain't
bear
gonna
in mind that we have a 94% collection rate,
Yeah,
so.
I just think the issue is, let's figure out
Yeah.
going forward to make a concerted effort, as Jill said, for the past half a dozen, 5 years, whatever.
I know, I just feel like it's not a good precedent, because then everyone listening to this is gonna go, great.
Well, the good
I
thing is
don't
no one
pay
watches
my,
this.
I don't pay my tickets in a few years, it'll just be
I mean,
written
I
off
can think of a joke who might be on right now, but I don't.
I can now replace my license plates, I just
I know
learned,
who you are,
and,
Laura, I'm
I
watching
hate
right
to
now,
tell
I
you,
know who you
everybody
are.
knows this is
you know,
this
and
is
not
the
pay my
worst.
tickets, and they're just gonna write it off, and I'll
But
never
this
be
is-
liable
But
for this
if
debt.
they are watching this, they're going to know that we are trying to think of a means by which we can pursue it, and if it comes down to booting people and someone's in town and.
People, well, you know what, maybe we should
I've
take.
never seen a car booted in
I,
this
when I
town.
was
really?
a
We've got
prosecutor, we
pictures.
got booted, yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
Oh, yeah.
Let me ask
someone
you,
boot for she had like 7 figures and $1,000+ in tickets.
we're talking about going back
That's
to,
forfeit.
we're talking about going back to writing off,
Jeez, I'm gonna
Tickets from
pay
2006,
millions of
right?
dollars in tickets.
but it goes all the way up to 2000. What years are you looking to write off? I mean, I.
2006 to 2011.
Okay, fine, so maybe we should write those off, but maybe from 2011, 2017, we should try to put them in collection.
I just don't understand what the advantage of writing things off is versus
Because our
leaving them open.
auditors don't. Our
But do we
auditors
get
don't-
a deduction?
No, what kind of deduction?
It's not that kind
I
of
know.
writing off.
I know, so.
It's our.
We pay
Just
less
like
income
declaring
taxes.
them on-
Right, yeah,
Comment on
let's
the
take the.
I'll take
And that's-
2014.
and So the term of
So
art
it doesn't
within our.
mess up our
I should have taken
Yeah.
2017.
Takes writing off.
That's a lot more.
So what is the advantage of this?
Our auditors tell
Like it.
us that if you have no reasonable expectation of ever receiving the money, you need to take it off your books as an expected revenue source, because the chances of us receiving this $36,000 is between slim and none.
Yeah, well, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
Is that right,
deemed
like, what, how do you,
uncollectible,
how
it's
did you
not.
determine that
It's
2011 was a
2017 was
cutoff for that, like,
$39,000.
like, what's the
16 is
oldest
29,000.
ticket that
It's
you
insanity.
would have
We
That's
bought
what's
bought
wrong,
it
it's
from
small
you know what I'm
increase.
saying, like,
2006,
Increased
so
our
from
prices and
2006, we're
tickets,
looking
so
at,
therefore it's, you know.
no, I get that, I
No,
just
but it's
mean
also
like,
distracted driving.
why did you
You
choose
get a lot of
2011?
No, these are parking
Like-
tickets.
Oh, these are parked.
Like, do you
Because-
expect to get something from
Okay.
2012, but definitely not 2010? I mean, like, how do you?
probably
business
because
districts?
in our
This could
archives,
fund your
under
business
the MS,
districts and
what is it,
then
MSMU
But that's what we should send
one,
out the recent one.
which is a state retention
Yeah.
schedule
There's gotta be a
for
better
archives,
mechanism.
Yeah.
you discard
There's
all
gotta
the
be
Keep
a
it
better
close.
mechanism.
Yeah, but your mechanism
file
will
is
go
deemed
forward.
dead.
This
No,
we
even
could
now,
just-
we could say, listen,
So we don't keep
if
any.
it works, you're allowed to.
So it seemed to me that that was a reasonable.
Is there a
We
way
did
you can
put that in
enforce
your
our
letter, I
2017,
No, that's
16,
okay,
and
that's
enforce
fine,
yours?
you know what,
Like,
but there was a method to my madness,
Yeah.
but
But how many
Yeah,
gonna be from
right,
North Castle? I
right.
agree.
Whatever it is, Mount Kisco, and we just,
because also bail not claimed within
Right,
6 years, they
right.
use it there as well.
so,
Right.
So it's
So
that's
6 years is
that's
sort of the standard by
there's-
which we
yeah.
don't think we're.
So let's make sure we're using all the enforcement tools that we have.
Okay.
Let's see if there are some additional ones we can come up with.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
this is roughly 13.
So for example, is the board interested in linking it to that before you register for a program, someone's gotta call the justice court and see if that person has any tickets they owe.
Well, we should maybe take a look and see whether that's something that would even have any teeth at all. So is there any,
That
how many
one-
of these are Newcastle residents?
Well, that's something we're gonna find out statistically.
How many of them are, enrolled in programs and have parking permits and have
Yeah,
things that would,
I am curious if we wait 2 months to see what that 427 looks like after we have our parking permit
Right.
season.
And why are we gonna write off, I mean, I understand writing off 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, but like even 11 and 12, but why are we writing off 13?
Oh, I never
No, we're not,
was.
we're not, we're not.
I just wanted to
Okay.
show you where it was.
Okay, alright.
And my point was is that 427, which is a rather high number, if you look at it, we haven't had our parking permit season
Yeah.
yet, and
What-
people usually run in at that
Right.
point and
Yeah,
clean up
they
their.
can't renew.
The truth is, some people don't even realize they have them until you renew your
Right,
person.
yes. We've had a number of people who like, they come in and we say, you've got tickets, and they're like, you're kidding.
Yeah,
And they open up like the glove compartment of the car that their kids drive in, and let the tickets
Yes,
come
I've-
pouring out. It's
where you
like,
take
oh.
a ticket off somebody else's car and put it on your car. So that you don't get a ticket, then the person who got the ticket doesn't know they had the ticket. I'm not saying I gotta do that, so. I know that people do that.
Warren,
Still
do
recording,
not repeat
still on?
Martin's
You
here,
don't, you've never heard people
I don't
do
think Martin
that?
needs
In the
that.
city, they do that all the time.
I would never
You take a ticket.
associate with people who would do that.
I would never
Okay.
do that, to be honest with you, but I know people
To
do
be honest
it.
with me.
I know people do that.
There's gotta be a way that you can do it.
So we'll think about it.
My
There we go.
guys at work, we don't do that. Kidding.
Okay, next. Is there anything else
They
on
don't
this?
get a ticket.
I don't think so.
So we're gonna examine.
More than I
enough for
wanted.
you.
Can't wait to
Alright.
see what the IT discussion looks like, yay.
Think differently, this is easy, this is just a resolution,
Yeah, so
we're
we'll put that on
copying,
for next time.
Yeah,
Dutchess County.
I wanna raise an objection to this. I don't understand the difference between this and what we've already done here in the town of Newcastle.
Just a resolution, I think.
No, it isn't the whole.
Well, but so we have diversity and inclusion programs already, we have a committee already. I would also like to point out that this gentleman, who's the county executive for Dutchess County, is running for the governorship of New York as a Republican, as a conservative this year. He is clearly seeking chits right now. He's shopping this around the towns and he's looking for people to sign up for this to burnish his reputation as,
Well, they've been doing this for a long, I hear what your point, but they've been doing this for a long time.
And frankly, I mean, this is a left-leaning town, I think people in this town would be disappointed to find that they were, a highlight in his press reel. So, I feel like maybe we can send this to our committee if they feel that this has merit
I think
and
they
that
did
this
already,
is
they did
different.
recommend it already.
Do we
Did
have
they?
that?
Yeah, this came from, this
It just
came
got
from,
received
Shannon.
last month.
No, what,
February 5th.
no, they came from, this was sent to, it was forwarded to the exceptional people, well, every person's connected committee, and then they sent it back, and they, I mean, I can check the emails, but this was definitely sent to them. And in Dutchess County, by the way, I understand what you're saying about him running for governor, but he has been doing this for a long time. And quite honestly, it's because his daughter has autism, I mean, that's why. I mean,
I actually know Mark personally very, very well for many years. He is a genuine good person, he's maybe on the wrong side of the
I don't
political
doubt
spectrum
that.
for me in terms of voting, but yes, his daughter does have that issue. But that being said, I think Ivy raises a good point, is we are pretty proactive in this arena on our own merit.
Well,
And as
did
much
you-
as I like to poke fun at your committees, you created a committee, we created a committee for dealing with, in part, many of the issues that are likely addressed through this. So do we need to,
Let me
a
check
resolution,
it
I mean-
from the committee.
yeah, let's hear from them, again, I think it's genuine and sincere, and I can't tell you what he was thinking back in January or December of the end of of 17. He's a great person, great guy, but one has nothing to do with the other.
It doesn't, listen, if this was a conversation about setting up the committee, it'd be different, this is not so important.
So, yeah, so
If
let's-
anybody's objected, if somebody has a strong opinion about it, then we can just ditch it. It doesn't matter, I mean, it's not that,
What does it
it's
mean
not
for
that
us to do
important.
it? We've demonstrated
Yes,
our
we're
own.
not, yeah, we're not, it's nothing, it's
This is not a statement against him or anything, we have it on our own.
Right, exactly.
So can we just go back to goals and objectives
It's
just
talk
for
anyway,
2
talk,
seconds?
it's not
And
even
that
action.
is, Rob set up this great little Excel sheet,
I
maybe
did?
people
Oh.
can just go through and just.
Yeah, I mean,
tell
I
me.
have my own to add to it as well.
Nobody has though, come on.
Alright.
Well, I don't, we didn't discuss this today, but part of the reason I wasn't contributing to this is because I didn't understand what we were trying to do here. So it wasn't until you explained today that you intend to have one of these on the agenda for each work session going forward that I understood how it connected to goals and objectives, and I do think that we need to be mindful of the fact that it ought to track back to the goals and objectives that we have in the comp plan. So when I was reviewing it initially, I was like, are these different from the comp plan? So this clarified that
Well,
today, but I do
it's-
have
Alright,
No, but it is, it is.
Holland's not here, so we just put this on for next
No,
week.
but they are different because this is part of Jill's contract, it's supposed to have goals and objectives, it's supposed to be criteria that we evaluate and to see whether they're achieving them. I mean, like the downtown infrastructure is not necessarily part of the comp plan, it's just basically one of the goals is to, complete the
But
downtown infrastructure.
that's not a goal and objective, I mean, this is an agenda, this is a list of activities that we're going to.
No,
Right,
it's
and-
Jill's the goals and objectives.
Yeah, but the problem is that one of the things that I'm charged with is trying to get a clear direction from the board as to what your priorities are of the with the projects that are
That's how we
ongoing.
evaluate you to some extent at
And
the end of the
how
year.
I move the board along to
Yeah.
get to where you tell me you wanna go. And I can't do that if
We
I
never
don't
give you
have the
goals and
clear direction.
objectives.
It's in addition to the goals and objectives that are part of the comp plan, because that too is part of my responsibility to try to move us closer to it. And the only way I get to do that is by talking about it, and yeah, unfortunately going through this.
Right.
It is what it is.
It is different than the comp plan, I
Yeah.
mean, there's definitely overlap,
That's
obviously.
all over,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
so
so,
I'm
alright,
right.
trying to get us there.
But I
Okay.
think the big problem is, listen, my suggestion was let's rate them, but the truth is, I mean, they're all important. Because we came up with that list by all of us coming up with our,
Telling us what
so
it
they're
is you
really
wanna
all
accomplish,
important, and I didn't want to
yeah.
put fives for everything.
That rate wasn't last year, it was this
Yeah,
year.
I'll
part
give
of
you
the
mine,
list.
like, I think basketball coach.
No, see, I think this
Ivy
is,
didn't,
That should be a five
provide
now.
a-
no, see, this is the problem, is I have
That's why I have
not,
like 5 to add, so.
I have not had
But I said we should have.
the attention of this board
oh,
I know, we
give me
keep
the
putting it
I
on.
thought Ivy was part of that, I
No.
just got mixed together.
No, I was a part of the prioritization of the goals and objectives
Of
that
the
are in the
comp
comp
plan.
plan, so that's why I kept
This is
getting
different. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Right.
Right,
So this is
Jill's
their,
contract,
yeah, I know there's a lot of goals,
Yeah,
a lot of
sorry.
objectives, but yeah, so,
But there's definitely overlap.
Alright, and
Yes.
I'll give you my number, I agreed with a lot of these, but I'll give you.
okay, great. So CHIPS funding, getting some more
Object.
money, which is always a perfect thing. Police vehicle purchase, there's information regarding the purchase of a police vehicle.
But Jill, back to that chip
anticipated-
funding for 1 second, just take 2 seconds, I did some of those numbers to Rob Deary. But how much more was it than we were expecting? You know, if any, never responded to
Oh
the email.
gosh, wait,
Cause in our chip, when we say we have $900,000 for paving this year, he's anticipating getting
I think it was-
$235,000 for chips. And this year we're getting like 330 or 310, something like that.
yeah, did we put Jerry's memo in here, Kira?
Yeah, we should see an additional $316,996.
Yeah, but that, some of that was accounted for already. Some of
That's
that,
the, no, that's the,
You know how
that's
much
the
that's
total.
gonna
no, when we do the paving budget, like he said, we have 900,000 or something for the paving budget, I think it's 861 or whatever it was. He's actually counting on
Certain amounts of money coming in.
235,000 coming from chips.
So it's, you'd ask for
So
the
the
difference.
question is, how much more did we get than we were expecting?
Gotcha. So it sounds like it's 100 and change.
Assuming that was
No,
200,
I think
don't know what the
because it's,
number
I
was.
think it's like the extreme winter recovery apportionment, I think that's what the additional money is. So it's like an additional 42.5.
Right, I don't know what it was, but that's.
Additional 42,500?
577.
Oh, so it's not anywhere near, okay, make it
But
sound.
we
Yeah,
don't know
so
what
it's,
we were
it's
expecting.
collectively,
Cause I remember
Yeah, it's
last
an
year, like, I was
additional-
all excited, thinking we're getting 200,000, no, no.
wait, no,
200 already counted.
Jerry, wait, no,
It wasn't last year, like 3 years or whatever it was, that's when I first learned it.
yeah, no, when he says that the fund will see it, that's that's the CHIPS money that he was already getting, which is the 223.
So then if it's
And
223.
then the paved New York was another 50,000,
That he was expecting.
51,
Right.
right, and then he got the extreme recovery, which is another 42.5. So all told, it's 317. Which is great, don't get me
But
wrong.
what were we expecting?
We were already expecting the 223,
Oh, it's 317?
yes.
Okay, so.
So
it's
no, no,
just
no,
one-
it's sizable.
it's
Yeah,
like-
paved New York is another 51, but I think he was expecting some of that. I know that the winter recovery is additional funding, but
Right, he
we
was
never,
expecting some of it, right,
Yeah.
I mean, there's always two numbers to make up that thing.
so
Well, whatever
that's
it
always
is.
nice.
Ooh, so this is a late night.
It increases the amount of money.
What do we got now? Alright,
Okay, police vehicle,
yeah.
it's 31,823, it's for an unmarked utility interceptor.
And it was budgeted for.
Yes, absolutely included in the budget. And then we've got the quote from Buyer Ford.
You know, somebody made an interesting point though about the, this was from Facebook, it's not a bad, wasn't a bad point, you know, we have a couple of these
Unmarked?
unmarked cars, they are marked, it's just dark, it's, you know, you
Yeah.
can't see it, and then people made a point, you know, you're not really supposed to pull over for an unmarked car. So, and then you're supposed to call in the license plate, I mean, you know, really are people doing that, I mean,
Is that really, is that the, is that the, is that
they
the
tell
law?
you, that's what they recommend, you know, call
For
in the police
safety, 'cause
station
it could
and
be
make sure
anybody.
this is a real police officer. So you get pulled over and the cop comes to your window, you're gonna be like, I'm not opening my window, I'm still on the phone, making sure
That you're a real
that you're
person.
real, that'll really help, that'll help the situation.
It's a safety thing.
But I
Well, I
wonder,
understand that it was on the highway, there was an issue years ago, I remember there was brought up.
yeah, but I wonder if there's a way.
Or you're supposed to put on your flashers and drive to like the police station and pull over there.
Where does it say this? I'm not challenging, I just, where does it say, is that?
I
is
I
this
don't know if it's the
written in-
law, I think it's
Yeah,
just
where,
women learn it when they
No,
learn
it's
to
basically
drive
just
to be
that
safe.
something happens terrible and then all of a sudden people are concerned about, you know, but
There have been unmarked cars not actually
Yeah, of
driven by
course,
police
100%.
officers that have driven, pulled over people and harm has befallen.
Do they have, I wonder if there's like, on these unmarked cars, we can have like lights built into like, you know, like the back window or something, just basically, so once they pull over the people, they can turn on the flashing lights.
they do,
I
they
think
have
they
them,
do, that's
they
how they.
they're in the
they
grill,
pull
they're,
over.
yeah, they do.
have lights.
Oh, yeah, they do have the
They do
grill,
have
that's how you
lights.
know to pull over.
Alright,
Well, that's the chief.
But just something so that the people could feel comfortable that, okay, I got pulled over by a cop, we don't have to at least, bad enough I got pulled over by a cop, I don't need to
I think they're
worry.
usually in uniforms,
something
they
else
come
gonna
out, it says
happen.
Newcastle
Yeah,
Police
Newcastle
Department,
is-
and it's got
That's true,
uniforms on it.
okay, that's a good point, I forget, it serves me right for listening to Chuck.
yeah, I mean,
You clearly haven't been pulled over lately, so this is a good thing.
Well, it was a legitimate,
okay.
you know, they were raising
Yeah.
a concern.
Yeah, no, I will ask the chief
oh,
about
but you
it,
can't drive around in your police uniform anymore. So I feel like you're a-
Okay, we have a payment of
Still do.
claims, we've got an easement agreement for 91 Bedford Road LLC, which is a, which one is that one, we had some that were pulled, one wasn't, this is the is this one that we need to do tonight?
Yeah, it's in the it's in the proposed action packet. It's a stormwater management.
So it's just accepting a easement agreement, maintenance declaration, easement agreement.
Yeah, we're requiring them to submit a declaration of stormwater management, facilities maintenance and access easement agreement.
Okay. Good bitch. Okay.
That it?
With the resolutions, wait, we have to do a couple
So,
resolutions.
the Gedney, on the second page, the Gedney photo shoot.
Oh, right, get me photo shoot.
What's that?
We got a request for a photo shoot at Getney Park. The people are asking, it's for a commercial venture, and they're asking for a reduction in the fee.
Why?
Why?
Well, it's two requests, right? One is a request to actually use Gedney Park
Well,
for filming a commercial for a landscaping company, and the second is to have the fee reduced or waived.
Why do they want, what was their justification?
they thought it was expensive.
Given the size, we have to
Okay.
make a payment to the town of Newcastle, given the size of the company and the short length of the shoot, we'd like to ask for a price considerably lower than the $1,500 on the town permit request. It's total turf landscaping. No-
Is,
What's the intrusion on the, what's the intrusion on the property? Is it just the shoot?
They're bringing how many
Total
trucks?
turf.
Has we-
11 trucks
make it
onto
decent.
Have we
Upper
verified
Gate.
that there's no activities going on there at that time?
Yeah, it's during the week, I asked him when it would be, he said it would be
7
during
a.m.
7 a.m. during the week,
Oh,
or
yeah.
weekday from 7
Oh, it's
yeah.
weekday, okay.
Yeah.
But I don't remember, now our permit fee for, doesn't specify a time. It doesn't say if you're filming for 2 hours, it's this, if it's,
No,
10
it
hours.
distinguishes between
It's just
not-for-profit and I think also student, if I
Right.
remember
Right.
correctly.
So I don't see that you have, it under the statute, you don't have the authority
Yeah.
to waive it.
yeah,
I
I
don't think
agree.
we should reduce it.
I don't think we should reduce it, but
No,
if
but
I
it is
was
interesting
granting
going
it,
forward, it is interesting going forward, does that allow someone a right to be there 5 hours? As opposed to 2 hours? As
No, I
opposed to
forget
6
how,
hours?
well, first of all, I think that's separate, right? Because if they're doing it on private property, they have to make an arrangement with the person. So the
I'm
first
talking
question,
about, I'm talking about getting here.
okay, right.
Usually the agreement's for a period of time. I mean, I've rented the picnic shelter there before, and it's like, you know, you get it from 10 to 1 or, you
Well, I
know,
don't know.
but
there's
this
a-
is
there's a
the
narrow-
film
But this
photo
is different
shoot
from the
thing,
film
it's
ordinance.
different.
The
It's
question-
different from the film ordinance.
That's right, this is the question of,
It's just the
do you want to
location.
use Gedney Park and how long can you use Gedney Park? That's separate from your film
And so
ordinance.
they should get to use Gedney Park for whatever the,
Well, but what areas of the park are they using and what?
I think they said the upper parking lot, at the, by the upper
By the
fields.
soccer field.
Yes, the soccer fields.
No, that's one field up there, that's nothing.
Well, it's,
Why would they
I
not
assume
film
it's the
that?
parking lot is where, I sure hope they're not driving their trucks onto the middle of my
that's a good
soccer
Well,
field.
we should find that out.
Yeah, that's a good
No, that's a
question.
parking lot up there.
Yeah, there is, but are they taking
Yeah, I'm
vehicles
not-
on?
I don't know that, well, would we, well, the only question is, and why don't we use it, is
Well-
when you allow one commercial entity to use our public fields, then you don't have the right to say no to a different commercial entity that you may not like as much.
And is there, is this, I'll go extreme, say, are you implying an endorsement of this company by using town, Gedney Park, and is it, I mean, they're using your park for a landscaping company for their commercials?
But we
We're
rent,
endorsing their payment.
we rent that space,
That's what we're
we rent the
endorsing.
parks. We rent the
For,
park to,
Anyway,
we
we would
rent it
just
to
be,
nonprofits, we rent it to companies to have their picnics, we rent it to.
yeah.
Doesn't mean we're endorsing them.
Well, maybe we should put in that they can't use like a Gedney.
They can't use
Park
the
sign.
Newcastle logo or any type of sign in there.
I think they just want a green field.
No,
so
I
it
agree,
looks
Right.
I'm just saying we should say it in there.
Well, just show her up that they're not thinking that they were gonna be on our field.
I'm more concerned about them tracking on,
Yeah.
ripping up the field.
But I don't think we should waive the fee.
No.
I mean, not waive the fee, not even reduce it.
Why
but
would
I
they,
Upper
why
parking
would
lot.
they drive a
Does it say
vehicle
parking lot?
onto the
It
field?
says
That
upper
makes
parking
no
lot at Gedney Park will need to block off the parking with cones for the time range of the shoot, which is early May when the trees have leaves from 7 a.m. and done by 9:30.
Just make sure there's no soccer game up there, sometimes
during
soccer's
the
starting
week.
at 8.
Days.
Oh, it's during the
Yeah.
week.
Yeah, I asked that because that was my thought, that you can't be there in the weekend.
Yeah.
So if it's income, might as well. I don't wanna reduce it.
I'm okay with that as long as we make sure they know they can't use any Newcastle logos or anything else.
Okay, but we're not reducing a fee, okay.
Alright, how about I move to approve the change order number 1, which involves 3 tasks from Boswell Engineering to provide engineering design and ramp certification for public right-of-way accessibility guidelines and ADA compliant curb ramps, sidewalks for the downtown infrastructure and street shape project as detailed in their proposal dated April 17th of this year for a lump sum of $36,590 plus 10% contingency, totaling $40,250.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I don't have the other one, so if anyone wants to leave us.
I move to authorize the town board to ratify the 5-year agreement with the Newcastle Police Benevolent Association, Inc. as per the terms detailed in the memorandum of agreement dated April 11th, 2018, covering the period January 1st, 2018 through December 31st, 2022, and authorize the town administrator Jill Shapiro to sign the agreement on behalf of the town.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Want me to do the next one?
Sure.
Whereas by resolution adopted December 19th, 2017, the planning board of Newcastle approved a site development plan, wetlands permit, tree removal permit, and stormwater pollution prevention plan, requested by 91 Bedford Road LLC. And whereas condition 21 of such resolution requires the applicant to submit a declaration of stormwater management facilities maintenance and easement agreement in a recordable form satisfactory to the town. Town council, whereas the town board is in receipt of the required agreement and town council and the town engineer have confirmed they are in a satisfactory form. Therefore be it resolved, the town board hereby approves the aforementioned agreement and authorizes the supervisor of the town of Newcastle to execute all documents as may be necessary for the purpose of recording the agreement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so are we done with the resolutions, cause we have.
Well, we got the payment of claims, right?
Okay, two payment claims.
I move to approve payment of claims in the amount of $583,188.82 listed on the summary pre-check writing report and detail voucher detail reports, all dated April 13th, 2018. Checks will be issued and mailed to each claimant listed on Wednesday, April 18th, 2018.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, pediatric, wait, one more thing, and that's the last thing here, and that's the parking permit refund.
We had discussed this last, we
I
had
mean,
discussed
you
this at
kicked
the
it
last
over,
meeting.
but it's,
It's the last
Right, you push it over because the question was you can't do it just for one person, so if you wanted to adopt a policy that said due to the storm and come with some policy that says you were waiving because of the storm for people who were late for X number of days. And there was some discussion as to whether that was appropriate or not.
I have no problem due to the storm waiving, giving people more time.
Remember, the point was that we couldn't,
No, Jeremy wasn't here last week.
oh, you, oh right, you
I
weren't
didn't
here.
hear it.
Yeah.
The point was that
That's the request.
that we couldn't, if you remember with other things, waive something for one person, we'd have to waive it for everybody.
Right.
But if we set up this
Well,
condition that Nick is
time out,
recommending.
so this was,
I
this is
thought
February 2nd, and they waited until,
yes.
I mean, that's, I mean, I'm sounding like a jerk, but that's 26 plus 20 days is 40, I mean, that's, you're not talking, that wasn't the storms, that was, were there
there
storms?
was a storm, but not enough.
That was the other discussion, was concerned about the timing and how this
Yeah.
all worked out.
And then how do you define what kind of storm qualifies?
No, that's right, and each time there's a storm, you're gonna get a request.
Right.
I think it's a slippery slope, I mean.
That's
I agree.
why right, it does become a slippery slope.
You know, we're not talking about a day late here.
Right.
We're talking about
And we've had these discussions, so I don't want the individual to think it's different, you've had these discussions with water bills, sewer bills,
Yeah,
late tax
that you
payments.
feel bad,
and
you
that's-
understand, but we can't.
Well, there's a
Our
high burden for hardship.
municipality-
It is, and it's, it's a question of making sure you treat everyone the same, and once you adopt one policy, you don't wanna be accused of being arbitrary and capricious.
Right.
So that's why we've adopted these policies, and you're not any different from any other municipality. Maybe some have different policies, but in general, you're having, with respect to this issue, you have a set of policies that you need to adhere to.
Yeah,
You know.
I don't understand the issue, but looking at that, I think you didn't have consistency, and while certainly, you're right, it's not personal, this is not some of the hardships we've been seeing before, where people really can't move around and they still don't, for lack of a better term, qualify.
And Ivy, just for background, which you may know this anyway from your prior experience, but you know, we've contemplated like two years ago, you know, just eliminating the hardship provision entirely. Because like then you could just, it's easier, just say there's no exceptions whatsoever, and some municipalities do that. But we decided to keep the hardship provision. But the truth is, there's some argument to just eliminating them because you avoid feeling bad
Well,
and looking like hard asses.
I'm sure that over,
And it's very specific what our hardship is. Okay,
alright,
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
second,
All in
Anyone
favor?
wanna stay?
I object,
I moved.
I abstain.
I made the
I abstain.
move, the
I
motion,
abstain.
I guess.
You got three.
Filibuster?
I could have kept you here all night.
Something
Ivy,
put in my car.
Yes.
withdraw,
I
that's
wanna
keeping you
give,
all night.
Oh, God.